You should have heard Sebi last night on Nap.
Oh,
and we are live, of course.
Exclusive.
Welcome to the Gooners podcast, season 6, episode 30. Because I'm counting each hour of the 24-hour podcast as a separate episode. You know what the greatest thing about that entrance video? First, Andy does everything studios. He does everything except for anything not having done, making that video. We can't find him here, and it's our 5-year anniversary today of the podcast.
Wow.
And another thing I was thinking
where he asked an old Jewish drunk man on a plane if he wanted to podcast, and I said yes. I mean, that was 5 years ago this week. Our Twitter account was set up 5 years ago today, and he can't be arsed to show up. And I got these 3 other guys. Also, he went through all that work to make that video, to add like pictures of Eoin and Mike. And then we went and added a 5th member on his ass. He's got to do it all over again.
I was just literally going to say it.
I hope there's no photos of me floating around social media that are of the quality that would make it into that video.
Well, I can trust you. Andy will find them.
You know, we already use a particular photo for you. So
yeah, there's pictures of Jared out there for sure.
So yes, this is the first of many probably anger casts. Giving up casts. Mike Herz tells us everything's gonna be all right casts. And Jared actually spits some knowledge casts. But welcome back to the Gooners podcast. We're settling back into our normal routine, which is Monday evenings at 10, miserable and without Andy. So yes, happy 5-year anniversary to anybody that's been watching us since the very start. I don't know, Mikey, if you fall in that category, if you picked us up a little bit in, but
maybe like episode 5 or 6 in.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, no
very
one
close.
To episode 1 or 2. I mean, that's literally impossible. It was probably when we got Danny to actually admit that we were a good podcast that most people came on. But
he admitted that you guys were a podcast. I don't remember the good part.
Well, that's all we needed. That's all we needed. And in case anyone's wondering, ask people support Arsenal. I'm scaling back a little bit, and I'm now going to profess my love because I think this team is better run, more fun than Arsenal is right now. So Sutton United.
Who's that? Sutton? Oh, I thought you were entering a lookalike competition for their goalkeeper.
Now, look, we have a special something. The two of us, we hang out frequently, but he's way too light for me. I'm a couple stone heavier than he is, and it's always been that way. So, but yeah, man, Sutton till I die. Sorry. The good news is I only have to keep this on for like another week or so.
The all or nothing on Sutton is going to be sweet.
It's going to be amazing.
Epic.
So what's funny about this is we were sort of talking backstage before the podcast and explaining to Jared that we often have a sort of loose idea of whoever's hosting the podcast has a loose idea of some of the topics that they'd like to cover. And obviously this week is my turn to host. And to be honest with you, when I went to put some pen to paper, I just couldn't write down any particular topics because I think that the situation at Arsenal as a whole and that Brentford game completely align. And I think that feelings are too raw, that emotions are too heightened. and that views are so intensified at the minute that it's going to be hard to actually sit and just go along by a script. So I think what I'll do to start is if I put my feelings across in a bit of a monologue, and then we can open it up from there, and we can just dissect whatever you think is worth dissecting. And
can we do one quick thing first, though?
I told you I'd show you it after. It's not big.
I said quick, not small.
Sorry.
I do want to thank Kim for bringing this up. If in fact the Same Old Arsenal podcast is truly and well over, and you know, I don't doubt that it is, but you know, I know kind of the history of the stops and starts with it, and completely understandable the whole way through. The Same Old Arsenal podcast started shortly after ours did, probably a few months, if not even maybe 4 or 5 months after, but it was a kind of just a continuation or rebirth of Craig's the Gooner Talk channel before Tom took it over and made it his own. So, you know, Craig and his friends, Mems and Judges and Dan and everybody else that's been on that podcast are just, I mean, they do an amazing job. They aren't one thing or another. They're not AFTV. They're not toxically positive. They're not anything. They're just people who love the club. And so, you know, obviously the people that are on that podcast will and continue to be on, but we just wanted to say thank you for the great podcasting that they've done. And, you know, we're happy to accept anyone that might be looking for something to do on Monday nights. You know, you never know, but thanks, Kim, for bringing that up. And indeed, hope Craig and the rest of the boys are doing well.
So in short, really, we're getting rid of Hertz now, and we're going to get Craig or somebody in.
I don't think that's exactly what's being called for here, but
okay. No,
it's the hair.
5's the max.
It's the hair. I feel like you feel threatened.
We're like Arsenal now during the transfer section. If we're going to add one, we got to get rid of one first.
Yeah. No, speaking of, so as I said, I think I'll just throw my feelings out there, and then we can start to dissect bits and pieces from it. Okay, so to be quite frank, I'm really, really annoyed. I thought that this feeling would probably subside like it normally does. I'd be quite, I wouldn't say irrational, but I'd be quite emotional when it comes to defeats and stuff like that. But this one just hasn't gone away. And I tell you why, because this club at the minute just seems to be an absolute free fall, complete free fall on and off the pitch. We're seeing stuff like Edu on holidays still, stuff going out during the Brentford game, like Lucas Torreira on holidays posting stuff up on just an absolute lack of respect, and that's before we even get onto the pitch. What I seen from Arsenal against Brentford wasn't just it's the first game of the season. It was this is a continuation of exactly what I have been seeing for 19 straight months. No style, one-dimensional in terms of the way that we're trying to build up play. A style of play that doesn't suit the personnel that we have involved within our squad. A lack of adaptability from the manager. His backroom staff, to me, seem like they aren't up to the task of even questioning him. He seems to have surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men. We now have our two most experienced players seemingly sick and unavailable for not only this game, but the next game too, which I'm not buying that at all. And now we look at the fixtures that we have coming up, and we have Man City, Chelsea and Spurs within the next 5 fixtures. And to me, I expect within the first 5 fixtures that we would probably be sitting bottom of the table, and I would be surprised if we'd even scored 1 goal. And people said last year, Arteta needs a transfer window. Now he has had 3. Arteta needs a pre-season. We've seen the pre-season. We were shocking during pre-season. There's been nothing done to rectify the shortcomings of that we've seen in the last 19 months. And at the end of the day, when he took that promotion to manager, he took some of that their responsibility regarding transfers and recruitment. Now, the last point before we can sort of start to dissect what I've gone through as well is that people say transfer window isn't over yet. And even Mikel Arteta and Edu, it has come out from the club, judge us at the end of the window. Yet we're seeing an arrogance, a level of arrogance, and I hold nothing against Mikel Arteta personally as a person, but we're seeing a level of arrogance from somebody who is massively inexperienced coming out and trying to speak as if he's some sort of veteran of the fucking football, veteran of the game. To me, he's somebody that I don't think has the ability to turn it around, never mind being likely to turn it around. And I think what we're doing is we're kicking the can down the road. And for me, we mentioned that I'm not going to go into politics here. I'm just using this as an example. Okay, today in society, I think there's two extremes for everything. We've got the political left and the political right, who are as both as extreme as the other. I also think that is the case with our fan base. Yes, you have whatever YouTuber you want to name that will go on and personally abuse the manager, but you've also got deluded people that go on and are so positive that you can't even call the manager into question, otherwise your fandom is questioned. And I think those people are just as harmful as
I'm kidding.
Mike Herz isn't one of these people. Mike is rational and explains his point, but for me now it's getting to the point where this isn't sustainable. It's just not. And the most common thing that people throw across now is that, well, who else is going to come in? Who else are we going to get to come in? That does not save somebody from being fucking sacked, okay? If there's a Catholic priest that has fucking paedophilic charges filed against him, I'm not going to let him babysit my children just because there's no other option out there. You know, just don't be fucking ridiculous.
What a parallel.
You forgot.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
speaking about extremes.
Yeah. No. But no, and now I'm going to throw it over to you, because to me, I'm looking on and I'm saying, our owners are clueless, okay? We've spent 50 million on Ben White, who seems to be a good player, but if that seems to be the hindering our other business and priorities like central midfield, Granit Xhaka was fucking wearing the captain's armband when a couple of weeks ago he was openly saying he wanted to go to Rome. This club's in absolute turmoil. Where do you boys sit with it, and how the fuck do we claw our way out of this absolute mess?
We don't anytime soon. I mean, it's going to get, believe it or not, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Because judge us at the end of the window. We're now painted into a corner where with 15 days, everybody knows that we are freaking out. We have no plan. We can't get rid of players. Any new players that we're going to buy are never going to agree to come to this shit show. So, I mean, there is no ability to act on our plan, and how can you blame anyone else for that but Arteta and Edu? I mean, you can blame Kroenke, but again, Kroenke is the thing that isn't changing. You can go there. You can go there all you want, and I'm not telling you not to or to, and nor would you listen to me if I did. You can go there all you want before the game on Sunday and raise as much noise as you can. He's not going anywhere. So that's not going to change. It has to change completely from kind of underneath and then from the top back down again. And this might end up being the season that just makes. I mean, we thought it was bad in 15th place at the beginning, in December or late November last season. I don't know that we'll be below 15th place, but it's going to be a kind of a joke as to how it goes. And I just don't see any other way around it. Which means we are going to beat Chelsea. We're gonna draw Man City, and then and then lose to Norwich in the following game. It's just.
I can see that.
I share your frustration. But I can't let it affect my day-to-day life. I'll just move on to my favorite League Two team.
But it's funny, lads, and one of you two can jump in on this here, okay? Because something that we always hear is that our squad is shite and that our players are, below the standard set. But I'm sorry, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang or Alexander Lacazette weren't exactly on hot form going into this season, and many people were crying out for the likes of Gabriel Martinelli and Fowler and Balogun to get a run out, for Sambi Lokonga to start in midfield, Kieran Tierney in left back, Callum Chambers in right back. These are players that people wanted and players that many people have defended to me, saying that they're good enough for the club, but yet. Different players and the same problems with the same system. Am I right in turning around and saying now that this seems pretty transparent, that this is a tactical issue from the manager and maybe not just as much a personnel issue maybe as we originally thought?
I mean, I think, there's stubbornness on both sides. You either have players that don't want to adjust to fit the system we want to play, and at the same time, you have a manager who's not willing to adjust his system to fit the players he already has. And it looks like neither side's willing to move on that. I mean, Aubameyang and Lacazette are to the point they're not even participating. And the idea that they're sick is, laughable on its face. There's nothing wrong with them. I'm sure if they get moved this week, they'll be in training day after tomorrow, wherever they go. So I think it's just both sides aren't willing to budge at all. And you're in a tough spot. Your two captains, that kind of the faces of the team the last 3 or 4 years, are the two guys who are kind of freezing themselves out, for lack of a better term. And I think Arteta's shown in his entire time here, both in his team selection, his tactics, just his mentality as a person, is he's relatively stubborn. I don't see him folding to Aubameyang and Lacazette. If you've got a superstar player who has some real clout, maybe they can get away with that to some degree and kind of pressure a manager. But you've got a 30-something striker who's off form. Why would Arteta bow down to that? I mean, he really doesn't offer anything when he's in the lineup. So why would he bow down to Aubameyang now? He's not going to make any impact if he comes on. While I know a lot of people were pretty critical of Fowler and Balogun in the opening game, my comment was, if you take him out and put Aubameyang in that spot, does the game look any different against Brentford? And I would say it absolutely does not. You can only, as a striker, you need service. You need somebody who can get the ball at your feet, and we don't have people that can do that. So if you have the best, team to build it up, we have some guys who can be effective, but when they're not getting the ball, they're not going to be able to do anything with it. So it's a strange situation. I think we need to move out at least one of the strikers, because right now I don't see either side, kind of budging or going forward to meet in the middle at all. I just don't think that's going to happen with us.
By the way, John, a new listener to the podcast. I love the guy. There's a picture for everything. I just want to show you that you can't make a comment like that and then not expect to get a picture. So, oh God, look at that hair, by the way, and the 44 chins that I have. I'm making him look like a stud. So yeah, there's some background. But Mikey,
hi.
You haven't had a chance to talk yet because of me.
No worries, dude. You guys brought up so many different points, and I'm gonna try to throw some my own thoughts in here. Like, as far as the transfer window goes, Eoin brought up the fact that he's disappointed in the transfer business we've done so far. So, look, I kind of see that as a double-edged blade, in the sense that I'm kind of happy with the players that they have brought in, until like the actual squad that they're bringing in, because all the positions are necessary. I am not content in the sense that I don't think we have exactly what we need yet. So there are other players, like, center midfielder. I was really big on that. Obviously the Xhaka thing happened, so that looks a little bit less likely. The right back situation, look, I can't turn around, and this is, I know, unpopular, because a lot of people were like, their idea is, we'll just fucking sell them. It's not that easy. Like, if we're thinking about Bellerin, who came out allegedly, made a statement saying, or Arnstein broke the news today, saying that he's willing to like even take a pay cut to leave. Please understand that I kind of tweeted about this. You guys think Chambers isn't good? He's our starting right back. He's keeping Cedric out, who is keeping Ainsley out, who is apparently keeping Tavares out. And then we arrived to Bellerin, and that's who we're trying to sell. He's not exactly hot fucking property going into this summer. I'm not trying to crap on the player, but he's not hot property right now, right? Willock, he took advantage of a loan. His value went up. There was somebody that wanted to buy him. We're looking at Nelson. Unfortunately, he just did not want to go out on loan last. Mike is getting all the love with the Sun United.
Well, now because the Sun United bloggers are in the house watching.
Oh, that is absolutely amazing.
Love those guys.
So Nelson refused to go out on loan. Unfortunately, he couldn't show some value. So I don't think that, like, Arsenal not being incapable of selling players this summer, makes us special in any way. If you look at Chelsea, they've only managed to move Tammy, who is young, bred, full of potential. There's clubs out there. They moved
the guy who was young and had absolutely no potential because no one knew what he was. Or I guess he was all potential. They moved him to Palace for $20+ million.
Oh, okay. Well played. Yeah, the most I've heard is apparently he showcased well in champions in the championship, and apparently that caught him some praise. But
Matsuashi is about to lose. I mean, they don't need to move players on, though. That's the problem. They don't care if they got a bloated lineup. They'll just play the best, keep bringing in players to get in their way, and store the rest of them. And,
that's what I'm saying. Like, so Chelsea managed to move 2 players on. Liverpool, to my knowledge, hasn't moved anybody on. To my knowledge, they want to, like, Manchester City is allegedly wanting to move Bernardo Silva on. No buyers. Liverpool, I haven't seen them move anybody on. Manchester United, Manchester United, and I know this because I also support Milan. They have a right back that was loaned in Milan, Delat. Oh, average right back, right? Man United asked, apparently, if I'm going based on reports, asked them for 3 mil. And even at 3 mil, Milan said, get fucked. We're going to go loan a player. So it's not that easy is all I'm saying. I just don't think the inability to sell players is a good stick to bash the club with, is all I'm going to say on that end. But
I agree with you that in a vacuum, that shouldn't be our biggest gripe with them right now, but it's just another symptom of, again, I don't look for sticks to bash the club with. I look for things to try to find something bright to look forward to, or I just ignore them and stick my head in the sand, my giant head in the sand. But the inability to sell players, I think we're trying to sell players that we maybe could have sold at one point, completely just devalued or let them devalue their own. It's just another clown car thing, along with so many other clown car things that Ainsley Maitland-Niles we could have let go for up to 20 million last season. Me saying that we shouldn't, because I actually thought we were going to play him and not freeze him out, and now we can't get rid of him for for tuppence. And and there's so many other examples of that. I mean, I do think we're worse at it than everybody else, but I also agree that this isn't the greatest summer for for getting top money for mediocre talent, and we've just really missed the boat on that. Owen, are you back with us?
Yeah. Sorry, it was the same. My internet's been playing up a little today, so I'm sorry.
Can we go back to when you had an incredible echo? You were like in an echo chamber, and
oh yeah, just like empty.
Sounded like you were podcasting from Westminster Abbey.
and then
but I don't want to cover stuff that maybe you covered while I was absent there. But I caught drift that you're obviously talking about the inability to move players on in this window and how that might impact. But for me, when you look back, okay, right, we can have the argument whether the Cronkies are very good owners, and we can have the argument whether Edu has been efficient in moving on or bringing in players. But for me, the simple fact is that this team that we have at the minute, regardless of what you think of them in this current form, are far, far better than what we're seeing on the pitch at the minute. Like, for example, the fact that it has been consistent through different variations of players, the fact that when we pick the ball up, it's immediately shifted out to the wing, put the crosses into whichever striker is there, tells me that is systemic instruction. And to me, it didn't look like a bunch of players who were poor or who were bad. Stop laughing at me, my English, Mike. But it looked like a team who were carrying out bad instructions from a novice manager. It seemed to me like for example, their high press got us in trouble at times. That caused us absolute devastation in pre-season. Mainly the Spurs game. I think we were absolutely torn to shreds because we were trying to overcommit to a press too high. It's just, like I said, the Cronkies, okay? And Mike Feinberg, maybe this as somebody who knows a fair bit about business, I would assume.
It must kill you to say that every time you say it. Kills people to admit that I know something about something. But
they always say with hesitancy. You notice that, Mike? You're like, you look like a guy.
Yeah, no, come on, now that's just never mind. Anyway, yeah. So, but the Cronkies, all right. We'll talk about the Cronkies as bad ownership, and I'm not defending them here. I'm just genuinely putting the point across and asking the question. When you own a business, if you're quite open to the fact that you're no expert of that business or that field, and you hand the reins over to somebody and say, look, you obviously know much more about this industry, and I'm willing to put trust in you to run it accordingly. Now we spent 50 million on Ben White, 25 million on Gabriel, 27 million on William Saliba, 25 million on Kieran Tierney. The list goes on. You know, you've got a front three there with 70 odd million for Nicola Pepe, 60 million for Aubameyang, 50 for Lacazette. The money's being spent. Can that blame fall at the feet of KSE, or is it just the inability from the people that they employ to get the best out of those assets that have been required? Like, is that KSE's fault, or does the blame lie solely at the people who are carrying out the day-to-day activities at the club?
Well, it never will lie solely on the people who are carrying out the day-to-day, because those people are judged to be sufficient and skillful by KSE. I mean, the buck stops at the top. The thing that your question is a great one, and just made me think like there's a difference between a public company and a private, closely held company. Public company, shareholders owned by, dozens to thousands to hundreds of thousands of people. Ultimately, you get a market expert who knows the business that's being brought in. They're compensated incredibly well, and their one job and their one performance, the one arbiter of how they're performing is ultimately the share price of the stock, which is based on results and potential and that sort of thing. But this is not that. This is a closely held business, and I deal in my work with a lot of closely held businesses where you have one owner, you have two partners. It's a family business passed through the generation, something like that. And in those situations, it is extremely rare to have ownership not somehow involved in leadership. Like, I mean, they're either the founder of the company, so the company was their idea to begin with. That's not the case with Arsenal. Or they are, they're heavily involved in the business and they own the business because it's an area that, whether it's construction or manufacturing or service business, it's something that they're familiar with. So we're already in a weird place when it comes to, an American owner with a history in real estate who marries someone who has a history in retail through their family, who decides to dabble in sports. And by dabble, I mean spend billions of dollars on maybe closer to 8 or 9 sports franchises. None more historically unique than Arsenal. So we're already at a deficit, as are some other clubs where we're basically closely owned, but we're just a business that's a portfolio asset to him. He doesn't know anything about the business, about the concept, about most importantly, the culture of football. So you've at least got to do, and John Henry is the same way. John Henry might know a little bit about sports, and I don't know what his history is as to how he became the owner of the Red Sox. He did a great job there, but John Henry's consistently put people in charge who have succeeded. Kroenkes have done the exact opposite. I mean, they can't get out of their own way with the people. I mean, the revolving door. When we spoke to Josh in Denver a couple of summers ago, he stuck his chest out, and he was flanked by Vinay on one side and Raul on the other side, and his legal and kind of PR person, Mark Ganella, and Tomago on the other sides. And that was the team. And they had finally assembled the team. And Edu was on his way in, and in September he was going to start. And we're, and Unai's our guy. That was 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago. So, the fact that I kind of throw my hands up and say, this is just a shit show. I'm not going to worry about it every moment of every day. I'm not going to let this ruin my life, is for self-preservation. It isn't because I don't think people are destroying this football club. It's because I think that they are. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know that any one thing, whether it's not showing up to a seat you've paid for, whether it's showing up outside the place, whether it's not buying, whether it's buying other clubs' merchandise that fits way too tight, even though it's a 5XL. Thank you, Pandemonium, for warning me after I bought it. But none of those one things are going to work. The thing that's going to work is yet to be determined, and it's going to be when Kroenke decides he's bored of having this portfolio asset. And I don't see that coming anytime soon unless Daniel Ek comes in and literally offers him $5 billion.
Right. And I think a lot of it too is our perception of what the goals are as fans is completely different than what the goals are of KSE and the Cronkies. Their goal is to have an asset that continues to grow in value year to year. So in that regard, they look
and
at
I'd
it
love
as,
for it to be a successful one, but not so
yeah,
much.
right. But that's secondary for them. So as long as it continues to grow in value, they don't have a problem with the management structure because it's accomplishing their goals. It's continuing to gain in value, which of course it's always going to. You're a Premier League team in London. It's always going to go up and up and up. So on their end, there's no real push for them. Like I don't think they really care if we make the same amount of money relatively. I don't think they care if we win trophies or we finish 10th. Like the bottom line is what matters on their end. They're not fans in the same way that all of us are fans. As far as what we need to
Super
do
League is a great example of that. I mean,
exactly.
They weren't going to enter the Super League to win it. They were going to enter it to be safe in it.
See, that's if someone says, when are we going to stop being a mid-table team? That's when we're a bottom level team in the Super League. That's when.
And protected from ever falling off.
Yeah.
But Hertz, as somebody who's really positive, and you three forgive me, and people in the chat forgive me, because I do get quite wound up when it comes to stuff like this, and I probably won't wind down before the end of the show. So, but I'm really
leg didn't break itself. No, I'm just kidding.
But as somebody who's positive, I know, yeah, no, disclaimer. As somebody who's quite positive and maybe has a bit more patience than, say, someone like me, what is your view on the club and Mikel Arteta at the minute? Are you happy to stick with it? Am I overreacting? Is the fan base overreacting?
So on the Arteta thing, it's really funny how like people kind of pigeonholed me to Arteta in, and I want to say, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, I absolutely hate these like how people brand fans. You're like, oh, you don't like him, you call him a cunt, and you're Arteta out. You defend like a game where there was like a bad penalty. For fuck's sake, you're deluded. You're Arteta. And look, I try to look at the most positive things, but I've noticed that there's a sway with certain fans where like everybody that wanted Wenger to like leave, like for fuck's sake, just fucking leave. They threw their support at Emery. No matter fucking what, Emery was the GOAT. And when he got fired, fuck this new dude. And I'm sitting here like, man, I'm fucking heartbroken that Wenger had to leave because of the way it ended. Emery came in. Let's fucking go, boys. Let's hopefully this shit picks up. I really do feel like the locker room took a shit on him, and so I was bitterly disappointed on that. And when the locker room takes a shit on a manager, that's, for me, it's a clear indication where there's no coming back to that, right? Because you can't replace every single player. Arteta came in, again, let's fucking go, boys. Let's make this work. So that's kind of my perspective when it comes to supporting. I really don't give two shits whether I wanted one person to stay. Look, man, people they keep on floating the idea of Conte out, right? If you give me the opportunity, I'll replace Arteta myself with Conte. He's a great manager, but that's not the conversation we're having. I just support the guy because he's there. He's in charge of Arsenal FC, so I wish Arsenal to do the best. So I just want to. I'm going to throw that out there that I'm not completely and utterly married to Arteta. So
yeah, we know that. But as your public persona grows, as it has through your affiliation with the greatest podcast, that now we've moved into the number 6 slot.
Yeah, no, Burke and Wonderland's been really good with me. Yeah,
but you're absolutely right. And knowing you as long as I've known you, that's absolutely the case. You are not driven by by defending an opinion until it's indefensible or is proven correct. You're just about trying to find the best possible thing to discuss about what we have, which I think is why you and I tend to be more of the
fence sitters.
Positive wing. I don't know enough about Jared to know where he falls in that, so I'm just going to call him a centrist. Owen and Andy are the negative Nellies of the podcast. Mike and I tend to be on the opposite side. So, Jared, you're centrist by default until you prove yourself otherwise.
So, I feel like that's not far off reality, to be honest. That's pretty much where I fall on most of this stuff.
But it's not an opinion so much on like the club. I mean, I could rant for an hour and a half about what's wrong with the club if I thought that would make me feel good. So I mean, I have 2 separate questions, and I'm doing what I do, which is I start to take over the podcast.
Do please, because my internet may go out again. So
So
Go ahead for that.
And I promise I was trying to answer your question.
Jared. I missed that. So, Owen, my question for you is like, how do you process this stuff? Because I mean, like you are certainly, it's on your mind. You seem weighed down by it, and so many people do seem weighed down by it. Like, at what point do you say I've got to just turn this off? I'm going to turn off Twitter. I'm going to not watch Arsenal, or do you just say, you know what, I need to find a different way to consume this that isn't going to, where my expectations aren't constantly let down, and I just, because that's where I float to, like, the soppy, at least we still have each other, which is the title of this podcast, because it's really the only thing I can think of right now that's going well, and so that's what I want to focus on, so that I'm
final
not crying
whistle
myself
of
to
a
sleep
horrible
every night.
defeat. Podcast now. That's
but genuinely, podcasting does help. And to be honest with you, people say that about disconnecting and about maybe taking a step back and not being so invested in the club or the games or the results, but I just don't have that in me. I've supported this club since before I can remember religiously, and I'll support it till the day I die religiously in the way I do. And yes, I get worked up, but it comes from quite an honest place. The reason I'm angry is because it means a lot to me. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm sick of, and I've never seen this before. And don't get me wrong, I think the people like yourself and Herz being positive, I absolutely love it, because I'm just not that type of person. I think especially over here between Ireland and England and the UK in general, we're all quite sort of pessimistic. We're quite miserable little people, and but look, here's what I don't like. I think that on Twitter, especially, like I mentioned about these far right positive people, far lefty positive people, if you want.
I was
going to
say I see that as more of a left thing than a right.
Yeah, way left. Okay, and there's certain people in particular that I see this on a weekly basis, and it's once anybody puts up any type of criticism about the manager, about Edu, about KSE, about a player, whoever it is, and they throw it out there, that they're instantly attacked for any kind of negative criticism on the club whatsoever. It's fall in line, support the club, shut up, and let them get on with it. And that's just not the way I feel that should be supported. Like, how do you feel about this? Like, something I've seen was there's a protest or apparently being organised outside the stadium for the Chelsea game. The amount of fucking ignorant assholes that I seen turning their noses up at people going, and it's like, no offense, and Mike, you'll know that I mean this in the right way. I am a fan who I understand how much it costs to go to games and everything. But I see people doing it. It's like, mate, you're not even fucking there. These people are spending thousands on season tickets every year, making the journey to the stadium every week. They've got the right to be pissed off as much as anybody. They're investing their time and their fucking life into this. And something that matters so much to people, myself included, is being dragged through the fucking mud at the minute by people who, from what I can see, have absolutely no idea what they're doing. We talked about Mikel Arteta and Edu, about this. We have our plan in place before the transfer window starts. And in the words of Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And for me, something that really gets on my nerves is something my boss told me, my first ever boss, when I started working. And he said to me, excuses are for fucking failures. Excuses are for failures. I don't want excuses. I want results. And at this point in time, I'm just hearing too many excuses and too many things being dragged into the reason why we're failing, and not remedies to correct the mistakes that we've been making for years.
And don't get me wrong, my feelings and the reason I process things the way I am, or try to process things, is about self-preservation more than it is a viewpoint on Arsenal. It's just I gotta be focused on things that make me happy. I can't dwell on this stuff, and that's just and I agree with you about the number of people who call out those who are expressing their anger. There is an opposite side to that,
absolutely. There's always two ends of the spectrum.
There's criticizing and there's
mediocrity.
There's criticizing and then there's insulting. and that I think people
that's what I don't
kinda
like.
merge
It's done in this
Right.
derogatory manner in which they almost look down as if to say, "What are you talking about? You know nothing." And it's like, I'm not talking about, let's fucking throw the name out there, Lee Gunner, for example, going out and personally insulting, using from time to time racial slurs to describe our football manager. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about dragging into questions team selection, tactics, genuine constructive criticism.
Well, and I'll throw some names into this because these are friends of mine who I happen to deal with things differently, but yet that they remain friends of ours who we have an active debate. My friend Russell Hoggy, Dan Potts. These are guys that I can't wait to get over to England and just drink with and hug at the pub and just spend time with, because I enjoy their company so much. And I know how much they love the Arsenal, and we get into debates sometimes, like, look, just don't cross the line where you tell me that I'm less of a fan or don't support the club or don't care enough. And they're sensitive to this because I choose not to, rant and rave in the public manner and that sort of thing. I want my love for Arsenal to be something that makes me happy. And even when it doesn't make me happy, I'll try to focus on what can. Then I'm like, as long as you can agree not to single me out or those like me as being lesser than, I will, I'll try not to single you out for spinning your wheels in my mind or dealing with something in a different way than I would deal with it. And you're right. There's a difference between abuse and wanting change, and there are always people who are going to be on the front lines of trying to make change happen, and there are going to be people who sit back and want it to happen but deal with it in a different way, and maybe that makes me weak or more accepting of mediocrity, but
it's not at all. And something, and any of the listeners can do this on any of the shows that we do, and apart from maybe the odd sort of joke or hint of sarcasm, we never call any person or their character into question in terms of them as a person, not as a footballer. We'll talk about their ability, their decisions, their manner in which they conduct themselves on the pitch, but we never take any of them into question, all right? And what I'm saying is, and I always say this, is I like Mikel Arteta. Exactly, point proven. I like Mikel Arteta. I think he's a nice guy. I think his intentions are probably in the right place. Most likely the same with Edu. But what I'm saying is say, for example, my mum, all right, she's a lovely woman, but I wouldn't let her perform open fucking heart surgery on me. Why? Because she's not qualified or experienced enough to do the job required. And that's what I'm saying about these people. And the one thing I would base that on is the last 19 months, the manner in which we have conducted ourselves. And something that's really frustrating me, and Jared, I'll throw this over to you, all right? People are talking about, like, there being no alternatives. Oh, there's no other manager out there. Do you really think that, let's, for a laugh, I'll say this because I know this one winds people up. Do you think Graham Potter does a worse job with Arsenal, this current side, than Mikel Arteta?
I mean, I'm not sure that he does any better. I mean, when you talk about replacing the manager, it's easy to say we're not happy with the way things are going, get this guy out. But in order to do that, what I don't want to see happen is we boot him out the door without a transition plan in place where we've got, okay, I guess Freddie Ljungberg is going to take over for a few games and we'll just see what happens, because we've seen that that's not a super successful way to go about it. If we're going to sack Arteta, you kind of have to look at three things. You have to have a manager that, one, is currently available. There's a lot of those. Two, someone who's willing to come to your team, slightly less of those available. And three, someone that's better than what you currently have. It's really easy to find a long list of guys that fill one or two of those out. It's a little bit difficult to find someone who fills all three. You look at Graham Potter. Is he available? Questionable. He's currently in a job. He may leave for Arsenal, obviously, but isn't a free agent by any means. Is he willing to come here? Yeah, probably. Is he better than what we have? I don't know. I think the 2 years before he went to Brighton, they finished like 15th and 17th. And the 2 years he's been there, they finished like 15th and 16th. So, I mean, he took over a struggling team and they're still a struggling team. Now, people say, well, with the eye test, they look better and this and that. And that may be true, but, the eye test doesn't put points on the board. So if he can't drag them up, how is he going to drag up our team that already has arguably more problems than Brighton has? So he wouldn't be the top of my list. If he does come here, I like everybody else, I hope he smashes it and we turn everything around, but I don't get that. I love Daniel, but I don't really understand it.
Penguins are dope, man. I love.
Dude, that's the most random, awesome comment.
I can't fly.
We went and saw Jake and I saw some penguins in the. See if you're listening to this, you're like, how did that tangent?
Jared was on such a
yeah.
roll
If you're
there.
not on
That
the
was
video,
such a
you're
great
really
monologue
lost.
right before I got
Daniel Robert, in case you don't know, Bird Leno made an appearance on the marathon.
Yeah, we
brilliant.
He saved me from getting shut out of the guessing player game. So
we saw the penguins down at SeaWorld a couple weeks ago, and it was fantastic. It's freezing cold in there, but
hold on, Jared. Let's talk about penguins real quick.
Jared is far too intelligent for this podcast. No, I understand what you're saying, Jared. Right, I do. I understand when we talk about the availability, the coach wanting to come, but nobody can tell me that Arsenal still don't have some sort of pull-up power. Number two, managers are egotistical people. People always think that they are the one to come in and remedy a situation and be the hero that everybody wants, right? So that'll fall into play. And say, for example, we're only using Graham Potter as an example because it's somebody we're talking about. Arsenal have the ability and the pulling power to go and just take him from Brighton. That's the way football works, and they could do that with numerous coaches throughout numerous leagues.
In his suitcase on his way out.
Yeah, just drag him too by the head. No, but it's but for me, it's not an excuse to saying that it's difficult to replace a manager. That doesn't mean that we should settle for mediocrity and below standard performances. By
I agree.
Something that clearly isn't working.
Yeah, no, I agree with that point completely. And I'm not opposed to, if there's somebody that checks all three of those boxes we can get, I'm all for it. I don't think that, based on what we've seen, I don't think, and I understand where some people are still Arteta in, but I don't think anybody would hold a position that it's not a justifiable move if he was sacked. Based on everything we've seen over the last 18 months, we haven't seen improvement. We finished 8th again. We started this season in absolute shambles. I think I tweeted that after the game. I didn't think it was possible for a team to go into such a downward spiral after one game. But when you go out there completely uninspired, look the way we do, lose to a newly promoted side, and have two of your best players refusing to play, you're in a pretty bad spot. Mm-hmm. All that being said, I think someone said it earlier, the responsibility lies at the top. And we look a lot of times at our problems as going from the players up, when really it should be from the ownership down. It's the ownership's responsibility to put good management in place. It's management's responsibility to scout quality players and do all of that. And that's an area where I think we're extremely deficient. If someone asks me what do I think is the biggest problem at Arsenal, because obviously we have more than one, it's the modeling we use to identify talent and bring in players. Mm-hmm. Just as an example, top of my head, people have linked Dominic Calvert-Lewin. They say we should go get him. He's a really good striker. He would help us out. I agree he's a good player, and would we be marginally better with him than without him? I think the answer is yes. But going out and spending $70 million on a top-class English striker isn't the modeling Arsenal should be using to improve. If you look at Manchester City, Manchester United, and Chelsea, they go out and buy the best player in each position every single summer. We can't try and emulate their model to a lesser degree and expect to be successful and beat them. You can't go out and buy one $70 million player when they do that for every position. Our focus should be more of, and this is me personally, I'm in analytics. I'm kind of a sports data type of guy, so it kind of falls more into my area that I'm interested in.
Just say it simple, you're an American. You're smart.
You're right. We should be on a sabermetrics model that, and I know all the teams have analytics departments now, but it should be more of a focus for Arsenal in a way that it isn't for those teams, because they have the luxury of not having to do that. They can just buy all the top talent and avoid doing all of that work. What's that?
What was Stats DNA supposed to be then?
Well, we need to do something like that, but to a more effective degree. The way you get better if you're not a team that has a huge spending power is you have to be able, this is a commodities game, essentially. You need to look at it from an economic standpoint and look for inefficiencies in the market where you can identify players that aren't necessarily the best players available in terms of they're not the Jack Grealishes, but they are the players that outperform and have a slightly higher value in reality than their perceived value in the market. And signing multiple players like that's how you build a team that's going to be successful and potentially outperform what you would think when you look at them on paper. You have
been 3 or 4 clubs in the Premier League who have done that to perfection in the last 5 years.
Yes, exactly.
West Ham, maybe Leeds.
But not
Brentford
even that.
Now, if I didn't support Arsenal, I'd be a Brentford fan. And not just because they beat us. It's because they're brilliant at it. It's what their ownership does. The guy is an analytics guy. He came from a sports gambling and sports betting background, and that's what he does. And they've done it brilliantly. When you look at, who they had, Ollie Watkins was there. They've had a number of players. Ben Rama. These are guys that they bought in,
Raya.
had success with, and then sold for 10 times or more than 10 times what they paid for them. So it's not that it's possible to do. It's extremely difficult. You've got to get a lot of really smart people in place who are able to do that, but it is possible. And if you don't have the spending power of those teams, you have to look to a different model to succeed, because you're not going to beat them at their own game when you're playing it to a lesser degree, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But what, and this is, I'm not sure what way to put this across, but so you mentioned there about trying to keep up with Man United and Chelsea in terms of we can't compete with them in terms of the volume of output we can assign to each individual signing. But yet, as much as I like him, again, I'll say this here, and I think it's quite a smart signing in the long run, you can't help but criticise the fact that we're in the midst of the Premier League season already. We haven't taken in any upgrade at right back. We haven't taken in any upgrade in our starting 11 for centre midfield. We've got no number 10. We've got no backup goalkeeper. Yet we spent 50 million quid on Ben White. We went from being linked with Locatelli, Ruben Neves, Yves Bissouma, to handing a guy who obviously wants to leave a contract extension. When we talk about the process, I'm not sure what is the fucking process, because to me it seems like stupid decision after stupid decision.
Can I translate this into a question for Mikey?
Yeah.
Because it's along the same lines. And by the way, with each additional piece of clothing I put on, do I look more and more like an Orthodox Jew? I can't do this podcast on Friday night looking like this. All right. So Mike, about the process. The people that I am most concerned with believing in the process are not Dan and Owen and Jared and Mikey and Andy and all of that. It's Ben and Kieran and Bakayo and Emil. And the question I was going to ask Jared 20 minutes ago, but now I'm going to put it on you, Mike, is, because Mike, you mentioned how the moment it became clear that Emery, the players were either downing tools or just confused or, preferred mockery of their coach rather than to follow him. That was the time that it became untenable for him to stay, no matter what the requirement, no matter what 5th place, no matter what Europa League final. None of that matters anymore when you have a team that won't play for you. And as I was talking in one of our kind of Twitter group chats earlier today, you could see, as bad as we were last year, even in 15th, that, other than the clique that we pretty much wiped out of there, you had a group of people who were the future of Arsenal who really seemed to buy into Arteta and a plan and a process. And so I said, as long as this seems to be the case, I will too. Are you starting to see some signs that there might be some chinks in the armor of the team believing in the process?
So I do, and I know that the word process has become like an ongoing joke at this point, right? But I do believe there's an active attempt, a process, if you will, within the club to correct the balance and the age profile of our squad. We went from having a lot of older players and to the last 2 seasons substantially making it way younger, right? Everybody we've been linked to this season been way younger. I know that Ben White is a bit of a controversial figure, but in my opinion, he's essentially replacing David Luiz, who was pretty much factually our best defender last season. Willian Saliba, I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because I could only assume there's way more going on with that situation than simply Arteta woke up one day, saw this guy that could clearly be a center back, a quality center back, and said, I don't like you on a personal level, so I'm just not going to play you. I find it difficult to get there. So I do believe there's a process. Now, and this process will culminate and potentially end without Arteta. And so this is where I'm going with this. One thing that you mentioned, though, I do want to point out, you mentioned Tierney, Saka, Elneny, not Elneny, Tierney, Saka, Emil Smith-Rowe. They all signed contract extensions under this process. This is a key, fundamental, very easy thing that nobody else was doing at our club. For whatever fucking reason, they just decided we're gonna leave it, and then the club fell into a really bad hole with a lot of like prissy people that were like money over playing time and stuff, and like the Ozil thing happened. So here's the process as I see it, Mikey. There is a process of systematically weeding out these bad eggs, and yes, that potentially could include Aubameyang. And I truly believe, I know that when people mention Conte, right? I keep on bringing that because that's the one name that keeps on floating around because he's a free agent right now. I truly believe that Arsenal Football Club is a more appealing project to a top manager next summer. I'm not saying, hey guys, let's keep Arteta no matter what happens. And then I'm not saying that. I'm simply stating if we look at the work that Edu and Arteta together have put in, they've signed only players under 24 that are considered fairly talented. I mean, Tavares, he was bought to be a backup. So it's not like we're going to buy a world-class left back to compete with Tierney. We're just not in that position yet. We're not Chelsea, right? Chelsea buys players and just stockpile them. So if you look at our squad overall, A, way younger. B, all of the young, massive talent that we have are under long-term contracts right now. C, next summer, even if we cannot pay them to leave this window, Kolasinac is running down his contract. No more Kolasinac, no more Lacazette. Aubameyang's going to be Aubameyang in. I'm thinking about one more. I'm sorry, Aubameyang and one more player on really high wages. Willian, thank you, Bulgarian Gooner. He just mentioned it. Willian and Aubameyang will be the last of their kind. So look. William,
there's one more that you're not including.
Am I missing one, Mikey?
Yeah, someone who just signed a goddamn contract today.
Oh, okay. No,
can I jump in?
My views on that. Sorry, I'll just
let's have a segment on that. I know we're already at an hour.
Okay.
So have a segment on that.
All I'm saying is,
not right now.
I do believe that there's a systematic process to correct the series of fuckery that took a decade to lead up to this. This is not me defending Edu, who knows how to man a grill, which I love to barbecue. And I'm not defending Arteta by saying this, but there is a series of fucked up events, including transfer fees, letting player after player after player go for free. And we are now only looking at correcting that. Like Holding, I'm not saying Rob Holding is a world beater, but Rob Holding would have 1 or 2 years left on his contract. He's mid-20s. And he's English, and you're complaining by a contract extension for him? You have to do this. This is what Liverpool's been doing. This is what Liverpool's been doing.
Can I jump in?
Going into the Xhaka thing, is that where you headed?
No. I was going to touch in on just a couple of things that you mentioned there, all right? And it was to do with the players that you mentioned, Emil Smith-Rowe, Bukayo Saka, Kieran Tierney, players like this, Gabriel Martinelli, who have signed contracts under Mikel Arteta. And to me, right, this goes back to when I was a kid playing football, right? And it was, if I had a manager and he was doing poorly, I never wanted that manager to be let go because we had failed him. We felt a personal responsibility to protect that manager and his reputation, and we wanted to play for him. Any mistakes that were made, we brought it on board to ourselves to say that we're going to correct those mistakes. They're not your fault. And to me, they're good characteristics to have. And that shows with the likes of Kieran Tierney, Bukayo Saka, and Emil Smith-Rowe. Now, just because, and this is what I get, see when people say that has he lost the dressing room yet, or he hasn't lost the dressing room yet. Just because he hasn't lost the dressing room doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best thing for the dressing room. Okay, so like, he might be their best mate. They might think that life is easy under Mikel Arteta. There may be players there that think they're getting good playing time more than they maybe get somewhere else. So they're probably reluctant to see this guy move on. Another thing as well I would touch on is there, like you've mentioned, there's some players that want to play for him, but you can't also overlook the fact that, okay, we can say we don't know what is going on behind the scenes, but that swings both ways when we talk about players like Matteo Guendouzi, like Ainsley Maitland-Niles, like William Saliba. These players that it almost seems that once you wrong Mikel Arteta, you're done, you're gone. He that's you out of his plans completely. And that's just not sustainable to do that. We all know that, especially in modern day football, the majority of players are somewhat egotistical. And to just say that you're casting aside financial assets because you don't like them for 5 minutes of your life, and that's them done and gone.
Jose's deal as well, though.
Yeah, but look how fast Jose Mourinho went through clubs. 1, 2, 3 seasons, and I think as Arsenal fans coming off of this hangover of this prolonged period with Arsene Wenger and trying to recover from it, we'll have this thing in our head that we're not going to be like some sort of whore of football that taking a different manager every season and sack them every time something goes wrong. But the honest answer is, if you ever think that we're going to have a manager with that sort of length of stint at Arsenal Football Club, you're living in fucking dreamland. That doesn't happen in modern football. Expect 2, 3, 4, 5 years max and then rotate. And there's no shame in turning around and saying...
But we need a manager that's going to outperform our ownership. All those clubs that cycle people back and forth, their ownership outperforms their manager, and our situation is flipped.
Yeah, but that's not an impossible task. Like you look at like Rafa Benitez at Newcastle, massively per owner. I can guarantee you that you can go and talk to any Newcastle fan about Mike Ashley, and they'll think 10 times worse of him than we do of KSE. But yet a manager was able to get a decent amount out of that squad. And what I'm saying is, I can guarantee you that Mikel Arteta could go to Barcelona, well, maybe not anymore, PSG, say now, and get a fine tune out of that group of players. But the reality of it is that our resource pool, our talent pool, doesn't stretch as far as those clubs. So whilst I think that Mikel Arteta may have the potential to go on to become a good manager in the future, I just don't think that he's the right fit for Arsenal at this moment in time.
Well, and it certainly seems to be headed that way. Jared, do you see the threat for a dressing room that suddenly, the most influential players in the team see a couple things. And the thing I kept thinking about is I totally agree and have agreed with you about the contract extensions being a good sign and flushing out the trash and keeping in the new. But maybe these contract extensions are looked at now by these guys as pay bumps and promises of release clauses, and you can leave in 2 years if things don't go this way. We don't know what was said along with these contracts to get these guys to sign, because if things don't work out, all of a sudden you've got a power base in this core that is like on a sinking ship. So Jared, do you see any potential signs? And I think we'll know more in about 2 weeks and then the international break when they all go off to be with their mates who are with successful clubs. But do you think that the dressing room could be lost by early to mid-September, leading into that Spurs game at the end of the month?
I think the one thing that works in our favor with having so many young guys is you have guys who just made it into the Premier League that love Arsenal. They're Arsenal guys, have finally reached their dream of coming from the academy. And, Saka and Smith Rowe, not an academy guy, but a guy like Tierney, it was kind of his dream move. I remember when someone asked him if he had been around London, and he said he hadn't even explored it. He said, I came to Arsenal for the football club. I didn't come to Arsenal to live in London. Like he doesn't care about that. So we have a number of guys that are key figures in Smith Rowe, Saka, and Tierney that I think are positive enough about the situation. They've all just signed contract extensions. I think they're going to kind of balance it out to where it's not a complete 180 on Mikel where everybody is moving the other direction. But I think it is going to be some somewhat difficult situations if we don't move out some of these guys. It just kind of starts to fester, especially when the team's playing poorly. If you're going out and winning games, it really doesn't matter. Everyone's kind of going to be okay no matter what. But if there's any little bit of tensions and you go out and lose 3, 4, 5 games in a row, it just exacerbates the problem so quickly that I think we would see another, mass exodus in the January window like we saw last year with Ozil, Mustafi, Kolasinac, that whole crew. We're going to end up seeing something similar if we don't either get it sorted out and start playing better quickly, or take the opportunity to move 1 or 2 guys out that could potentially be a problem this year. And even if you have to move them out and take back something lesser than what they're potentially worth, I think in some situations that ends up being a net positive if it, kind of prevents some of those problems down the road.
What do we think as well about Sunday's game with coming up to Chelsea? And I have only maybe one other thing I want to ask you boys about, but this is one of them. The fans are coming back into the stadium. Are you concerned about what sort of atmosphere there's going to be? I've heard people even say that the divide could be that harsh that there could potentially be violence in the stands and stuff like that. Are you concerned about the atmosphere around the fan base and what sort of light that could shine upon the club at the minute?
I feel like there's a video incoming from Mike.
Yeah, we can play that if need be. That was less than 4 years, or no, just over 4 years ago back in Palace. But that wasn't violence; that was just anger boiling over. And at the time it was shocking, especially from the away fans, who tend to be far more. I mean, even as bad as things were before that game against Crystal Palace, the beginning of that game was pure out and out support and singing and chanting. And it was only as the game went on and it was just a pathetic showing that it turned toxic. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that there'll be rage and violence at the beginning of the game. But my God, if we concede the first goal and if we're playing the ball out of the back and look clueless and everyone's looking at each other with their arms up in the air when we concede the first 4 goals, I do fear that it could get pretty bad. And it'll be embarrassing, but it's almost like, this is inevitable. This is what happens when your football club is a shambles. And yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. John is going to be there as a result of one of the greatest positives about the Arsenal fan base that could possibly be there, which is that people came flying to the aid of John's family friend, Max and his father and John and his son. And they're all going to be there at this game as a tribute to how the family gets together and supports each other, and they're probably going to see some things that they can't unsee. And it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And John, I hope that you guys are in the family enclosure and at least insulated from some of it. But yeah, it could be pretty scary. But do
you want me to throw out my one last thing? This is less sort of damp and dreadful. Something I noticed as well, and I thought it was just for the friendly, the North London derby.
There you go, Daniel.
Yeah, no, I thought it was just for the North London derby, but it's obviously sort of flooded into the Premier League, the start of the Premier League campaign, which is sort of a few different changes with the referee and the officiating. There seems to be a lot more being let go, the physicality sort of being encouraged back into the league in a way. What do you guys make of it? Did you pick up on it? I know I listened to an interview with, I forget which 2 referees it was, maybe Michael Oliver or something like that there, but they were saying that it's very much been instructed and they're going to try and let the game flow a lot more. I know that when I was watching City and Spurs yesterday, they let a lot go and really encourage physical contact within that game. Tanganga was absolutely bossing everybody. Yeah, but do you guys encourage it? Do you think it's maybe a little immature from the league to sort of encourage that physicality on some of these players with how much money's in the game now, or do you think this just sort of benefits everybody?
I'll jump in and just give a real quick short answer. I love it for the game. I think that's what makes the Premier League the Premier League. It's the most physical league in the world, and I think it adds to the game, and I love watching it. But
As
our
long as it's
around prior
consistent.
to this happening, it's just going to get worse. We have no physicality.
That's where I'm at. Like, I'm sorry to cut across you, Jared. Mikey kind of pointed it out. It's just the consistency that is literally all I care about. If you're just asking me, hey, Mike, do you like that they allow the game to play on more? Absolutely. Just allow players to express themselves. The shoulder on shoulder. It tends to happen. But it's consistency. That's all it is. Because if we see something as simple like, okay, so not making. I want to emphasize this again. I'm not making excuses, but the Brentford second goal. we had this discussion on a different podcast where. Look,
you were on another podcast.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say.
You are not on another podcast.
not another Arsenal podcast. No way. There, you guys milked it out of me. Look, like that type of thing might happen in a different game, and two things might happen. A, they're going to call a penalty, or I'm not a penalty. Sorry, they're going to stop the play and the goal when it's going to be valid. Or B, the goalie is going to make a complete show out of it, and they're going to be like, oh, that's a foul. And these little things are the things that are just like driving me crazy. So I just hope that if a situation like this happens again, somebody's goal does not get rolled out over something silly like this. That's all I'm saying. Because Leno could have shoved a little. He could have made an effort to pull the arm out. I'm not saying like Leno. It's not like the guy had Leno like fucking choke holding him or anything. No, so he had the opportunity to get out of him. I'm just hoping another game
loser.
When there's that level of contact, it's consistent. That's the biggest issue with me in English Premier League's refs is the consistency.
Yeah, and I like it. And again, if it's consistent, but you have teams that are softer than other teams, then at least that is a sporting disadvantage that you can, that you have to change yourself. It's not, we're going to let everyone kick around Bukayo Saka, but and elbow Pepe in the face and step on who was it that
Mustafi's dick.
Who was it?
Mustafi's the one who steps on Mustafi's dick most times.
Bruno Fernandes stepped on somebody
over it all the time.
Was it Thomas Partey's leg or something like that last year? I mean, is that you just can't let those things go and then penalize it in another word. But that's again, we've been over that. A couple quick topics that I'm going to kind of take over with before we try to wrap it up in the next 20 minutes or so. Anyone watch the U23 game today against West Ham?
I saw some score updates. I didn't get a chance to watch any of it. So
at least we have a promising future because our U23s today went out and lost 6-0 to West Ham's U23s, who recently had just lost 2-1 to Crawley Town. So there's that. And I have some highlights that I'd like to share with you because tell me if you don't see a little bit of the senior club in the play of the
Are we gonna get a copyright strike for this?
Is this a playing out from the back?
We don't
clip?
monetize, so look. They
no, demonetize us. No,
we don't.
Man, I need that dollar.
So
I need that dollar.
Tell me if you see any commonalities here with the playing from the back and the not playing 50-50 balls. So here's a little display. We'll start with the first goal. All right, that's one.
Was that holding at any and
I mean the number eight doing this was like prime Mustafi. Like
whoever's in charge of that group, not as the coach, but like as the director. I mean, he must be really purr. All right. Second goal. Now they went the rest of the first half without conceding. So at this point, we're looking pretty damn good against one of the best squads in the world. Now, the scorer of that goal, number 11, I can't think of his name right now. Someone in the chat can put it up. Making his debut for the West Ham U23s after beginning his youth career at Arsenal. So that was his first of a hat trick in his debut that he scored against us. So yeah, nice possession there. Third goal. Now, that's not a Conquo, that's not Hein, that's not Leno, that's not Emmy Martinez, that's not Runnerson, that's a Jehers, I think. So we're down to like our ninth string keeper, but
is this supposed to make us feel better?
But because he's already picked up on how Arteta wants to play. Did you see that?
I love that. I love that.
Finally make it back to the keeper. You're like, okay, well, they all look like they were about to lose the ball in possession, but at least now we have a chance to clear it. And
do you want to know what I was thinking about while watching that? Was like, is Alex Runnerson playing for the under-9s? Where is
he? Well, he's Leo Messo's personal bodyguard in the U9.
Runnerson makes the tea for the guy that makes the coffee.
Yeah, I mean all right, so it's 3-0 at this point. We got a great chance of equalizing because as you all know, the senior team went down 3-0 against West Ham last year and came back and drew. So things are going to be great. There's your second goal from the ex-Arsenal stud, who I think we are now going to pay £45 million to get back.
I mean, at least there was a beautiful through ball that started that move for him. It wasn't calamity beginning to end. But I saw Sebi's comment.
The counterattack. I just didn't start the video as to where we lost the possession.
It's really refreshing that we're consistent. We're just consistently shite. And I'm going to actually play that music now throughout the entirety of every 90 minutes of football that I watch from Arsenal this season.
Is this true, Chris?
Yeah, I just went on Twitter and I just confirmed it. Hey, I'm calling Chris into doubt over here. Like, no, I don't believe Chris. Yeah.
Well, it's the Daily Mail. Is that John Cross? Because look, this kind of news usually isn't bullshit. It's usually transfer. So yeah, I wish it would have been canceled.
Yeah. Hold on, but how does that play? How does that play a part? Unless they were all anally examined by a fucking fist, like how does that affect the performance?
The COVID test doesn't cause you to not play well on the pitch. I mean, like not passing the COVID test might, and what Owen just described, I can tell you firsthand that has an impact. But at least we ended up seeing this. There's your hat trick from number 11.
How was this all from one game?
Who was on goal? Was that on Conquo?
No, it was
okay.
Some Jehers or something like that, I believe, that I've never seen before. From what I could tell from the thing. But the second through 6 goals were all within about 20 minutes of each other. Like it just that just makes the clown show even more. But I think the goal we just showed is like the most Arsenal goal, where you can. I mean, it had a poor play out from the back, poor on possession, weakness, goalie scrambling out of position, like, oh my God, they're about to cross the ball in. It was everything you could possibly want. And then, of course, to finish it off.
What the fuck was that, man?
That's prime Arteta ball right there.
That was from a corner kick. I didn't get the corner in there, but basically when that video starts, they had just taken the ball from the corner. It was a corner kick. So that was a.
We've got a request. We got a request here from Daniel Robert. Can we at least see our goal?
It's like fucking.
Hey, that's the only one Mikey didn't save.
Honestly, I turned it off in the 88th minute. Unless we scored after the 88th minute, I don't think we scored a goal. But I could have that wrong.
It was like a fucking Laurel and Hardy movie. That is just calamitous.
I mean, I understand that these are youth players, but Aziz was in there, Norton Cuffey was in there, Rekic was in there, Cottrell was in there. Aziz, like I said, and they had two senior players, they had Yarmolenko and Lanzini, so that must have been the difference in why we can't play the ball out from the back.
Yeah.
This is my favorite thing. Sizing. At least the 6 was better than the others. That's like when I said on a pod a few months ago that our losses were better than they used to be.
Which got backfire.
I knew going in that was going to get me hammered, as Eoin says. All right. So as long as we're talking about the future, we have a brand new future that goes till at least 2024, maybe 2025, with the greatest leader of all time, Granit Xhaka. And
please pull up that quote. Where is that quote?
Which one?
I'll try and send it to you with there. I'll send it to you, Mike, on WhatsApp. You go ahead.
The leadership is so good that he wanted to go to Roma. Now look, I supported the concept of not selling him to Roma, especially to that Jose Mourinho, for £12 million, if that was what was being offered, or 14 million, or whatever it was. I mean, at least get 20 for the guy, and don't keep cuckolding yourself to other teams when it comes to transfer. So I'm fine with that, but then we're giving him all the money instead. We're literally over the next 4 years. If the pay rise is to be believed, and I haven't seen it absolutely confirmed, but if he's getting a pay rise of about 30 grand a week, 25, 30 grand a week, we are literally giving him over the next 4 years the £6 million that we sacrificed, that we didn't want to let Roma get off the hook for. And that this ends any discussion about Basuma. It ends any discussion about anybody else. It ends any discussion about Lokonga playing in his place when Partey's back and fit. And frankly, if the rumors about Aubameyang possibly leaving during this window are true, does anyone think that Tierney's going to be made captain above Granit Xhaka?
No.
I mean, kill me now, please. Jared.
He's back. The captain is back.
I'll send you that, Mike, on WhatsApp and Twitter.
Is that a true quote, Owen?
I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm on it right now, Mikey.
Bonkers.
All right.
I'm pretty sure it is.
So, as far as the Xhaka thing, I don't like it in that I wanted center midfield to be our number one priority this summer. I thought that should have been job one.
Oh,
before
that's
center
not a real
back.
quote. I saw that too. That's not a real quote.
Yeah, any of that
It
stuff.
is, Mike. Mike, it is.
Leave it up. Hey, I just want to chat room.
Either
so
someone
you know,
read that out or put it on the screen.
Look,
No,
there's
it's
a
not
name
allowing me.
underneath
It's
it.
not allowing me. Hear me out. It's not allowing me because we can't have more than 100 images.
I got it. I got it taken care of. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry. I did not mean to do that. All right, keep going, Jared. I'll get the quote up.
Oh. So the Xhaka thing I don't like.
Up on Mike.
Because I wanted to replace that position first. I thought it was most important. Given that we didn't fill it, and given that we haven't been able to sell him for less than what he's worth, I understand not wanting him to be down to 1 year on his contract next summer when we go to sell him, because he's going to be completely devalued. I think their idea is that with the extension at the end of next season, he'll still have 2 years left on his deal. And then hopefully what's an improving COVID, or in that case, hopefully non-COVID market, we may actually get more for him than the 12 or 13 million we could have gotten this summer. So all in all, I don't like it, but I think that's the logic they're using, given that they couldn't sell him and haven't replaced him.
He has creativity, though.
Yeah, for the audio listeners, I'll let Feinberg read this out for you. This is a direct quote from Granit Xhaka, confirmed.
I'm gonna try to read it like you. Once Mom sent me to the shops to buy butter. They only
you
had
Russian?
unsalted butter, so I bought unsalted butter and salt. I knew then I was very creative.
It's like a mix of a Russian and a Southern American accent.
I don't even know what that was.
I don't know what that was. Yeah, I don't know what that was, but that's how I envisioned Granite.
It was
Jacket
poor.
talking.
Yeah, it's like one of the Duke brothers fucked. What do you call that Russian dick? Vladimir Putin.
I thought you were talking about our shaman for a second.
No. Yeah,
All right.
yeah. It's been
Jared's like,
emotional.
I've been on the podcast for a week, and you're interrupting me every opportunity you possibly can get.
Just the way this works.
That's how it works.
Yeah. Well, it's been emotional, boys. Should we take some questions? Oh, there's Jake Feinberg in the chat.
He's doing his best to stop our depression about Arsenal by bringing it up to Mbappe replacement. I don't think anything about that. I'm sorry, bud. I'm too busy. I'm putting all of my focus behind Sutton United at this point, so I don't have time for little tin pot clubs like that Saint Germain club. So let me just talk about one more thing, and then we will wrap up. Gooners versus Cancer, obviously still going on. Believe it or not, Gooners versus Cancer has more phases to it than like the process that Arsenal's going through. But these have been successful. We've just finished a 24-hour podcast, which was like one of my favorite things that has ever occurred. It was so amazing, fun, supported. Thank you to everybody that tuned in for parts of it. We're gonna chop up the video into little segments, little bite-sized segments, so that so you can watch any particular segment you want without having to watch the whole 24 hours, as Owen would say. But we are entering the new phase with the Gooner raffle, where we're going to be putting up about a dozen really cool prizes to bid on. Everyone who's already donated is entered into it, so you don't have to worry that you didn't get you donated to this, but you're not being part of this. So you don't have to donate again if you've already donated. Obviously, if you want to, you're more than welcome to. But stay tuned to GoonersVCancer.com in the next couple days for more details on that. We're at about $15,000 raised for this summer. We're going to try to push to 25 if we can, and it'll just make for a great year. And so the promo video for that, which I want to play because again, I got people to do things that normally I would not have been able to get to do things. This is the promo video for Gooners versus Cancer, and once this is over, we'll say our goodbyes.
Hey Gooners, this is Alan Smith.
This is Kevin Campbell.
Lee Dixon.
Colin Lewin.
This is Gary Lewin.
Charles Watts.
Dan Potts. James Benge.
Danny. Tom from the Gooner Talk here.
Ryan O'Cross.
Simon Collins. You may know me from the Evening Standard.
You may know me for my time at Arsenal.
You may know me from Arsenal or even the Highbury squad.
I'm a bird cat Wonderland.
Being that physio sat on the bench next to Arsene with my rubber gloves on.
The former Arsenal physio.
The Emirates press box, from writing, from Twitter.
From goal.com, from Twitter, from YouTube.
Football is the beautiful game and it brings us all together.
Sometimes there are things even more important than wins and losses.
And yes, even transfers.
Every 30 seconds, someone in this world gets diagnosed with blood cancer.
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society works towards curing blood cancers
and provides support to families currently dealing with these diseases.
Gooners vs Cancer was started in 2017
by a lifelong Gooner who lost his father to leukemia way too young.
Over the last 5 years, Gooners v Cancer has raised over $50,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
And we need your help to match that in 2021.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
No matter the size.
And every donation enters you into the Gooner raffle,
where you have a great chance to win amazing Arsenal prizes,
including game tickets, stadium tours, signed men and women's shirts,
and maybe a retro signed shirt by yours truly, Lee Dixon.
Me, yours truly.
Yours truly, Super Kev Campbell.
So much more.
It's easy to take part.
Just go to www.goonersvcancer.com
and donate directly to the charity.
Pick the raffle prizes you want to enter to win,
and wait for the drawings at the end of the campaign.
Again, that's www.goonersversuscancer.com.
We all know that victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
With your help, we'll be victorious against blood cancer once and for all.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you for your support. That last part, like I feel like I'm running for Congress or something like that.
Thank you.
You
for
have my
your
vote.
support, America.
It wasn't creepy at all, Mike.
No, it was. That was like 3:00 in the morning, and I edited out the part where I said "Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support."
I feel like this question is very important, Mike.
Thank you to Danny, who's in the chat. The only one of that video who I think's in the chat for being nude during the video. That was much appreciated. And he also has a question for Jake, which is if you could have one of either Eoin, Kime. Who's Kime?
Mike.
Oh, okay, Mike. We've just learned about a particular affliction that Danny.
This is where dyslexia actually becomes a strength.
It really helps you out.
Kime or Jared as your new dad, as Mike was in prison for killing Andy, who would you pick? That's a good question. I'll
just open the door and shout to him.
Yeah, just open the door and tell me. But yeah, so I appreciate all the support. It's going to get fun, and I think Monday after the Chelsea game, I think Andy's going to show for that one, and he's going to bring his friend Serge, who was on with us last year before the season. A Chelsea supporter, yes, but an incredible fundraiser for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And he, in fact, is actually currently going through the recovery process from cancer himself. So he's a great guy, and I hope you'll welcome him on, despite the fact that he'll probably be lording it over us about the 6-0 against Chelsea that's just occurred. Anyone else have any final words? Mike, you want to promote your other 6 podcasts?
Yeah, I didn't mean to kill the camera there. Not another Arsenal podcast. Once a week podcast, normally record Sunday night or Monday night or 3-4 a.m. UK time. So we're on YouTube. That was a loaded question. Absolutely. So yeah, and I'm often joined by the wonderful Jared right over here, Christian Kelly, and my good friend Sebi. Lots of fun. But yeah, you can find me there every once in a while. And of course, right here in the Gooner podcast.
All right. Jared, how are you? What have you been with us 4 days now, 5 days? I mean, how are you feeling about your decision? Or should I not ask that in public?
Filing suits already.
Depends on the day. No, it's been great. I love, if nothing else, the WhatsApp with all of the guys from the Gooners pod is amazing. It's absolutely hilarious. It's great to be a part of. And yeah, looking forward to doing a lot more shows with you guys in the coming year. Hopefully we'll have some more positive things to talk about, but I'm really not confident that's going to be happening.
Yeah, that's well, and yes, John, if you want to stay with us after going to the match on Monday and let us know what the experience was, we'd love the kind of local correspondent angle. So ping me and remind me of that, and we'll definitely bring you on for a segment. Owen, thank you for leading the show today.
It was miserable. In response to it, I would just like to sort of promote myself to Jake as his new father, if that's okay, just before we go. Jake, know that whilst Mike Hernandez has the experience of having about 80 children, and Jared is probably the more well-spoken and financially stable guy, but I would be the one that I would not only encourage you and let you, I would also join you in taking numerous illegal substances. I would let you drink alcohol. And again, I wouldn't only aid you, I would take part in acquiring you with female companions. So I think that we're like match made in heaven. So yeah, hit me up.
You were losing them until you got to the female part. Yeah.
It's like, do you know at the end of the movie Matilda, where the little Danny DeVito adopts or gives the little girl up for adoption? You're Danny DeVito, and I'm like that sort of hot female teacher, but not a female. And I'm going to adopt your kid.
Well, oh yeah, and the pool table too.
Yeah, and yeah, the pool table. Yeah.
Notice how he doesn't say who it is. He just says he knows now. All right, I think
fighting over Jake's
purchasing of children should be where we leave off this. So thank you.
I don't know how we got here, but we got here.
For the 40 to 50 strong that were joining us throughout most of the pod tonight. We'll hope to see you again after Chelsea. We will be doing more than likely doing an open mic show after the game. This one's a little earlier. It's not that 11 o'clock p.m. UK stuff. So come to GoonerOpenMic.com if you want to have your say on anything at all after the game. John, you'll probably be on your way back, but yeah. So hopefully they'll surprise us when things are darkest for Arsenal. Sometimes they pull out the absolute greatest performances that we've ever seen. But my final word, as always.